The Ashikaga family had been exterminated by strings of unexplained murders, and that left the nobles of Kyoto in constant fear. The shogunate was reduced to groups of principled samurai with oaths to uphold, but absolutely no power over Japan's daimyo. In the Otomo lands this made no difference, for Yoshiaki acted as shogun in all but name. Now that there was an opening, it would be possible to make the title official, but such a usurpation was a crime that even the most bitter enemies could unite against. He still had to tread extremely carefully. The issue is plain. There are some 10,000 men under arms on this island, and we can count on the loyalty of barely half. Before we can progress any further on the mainland, this matter must be settled. Father, I believe that if we were to commit our missionaries to turning their population onto our side, they would be forced by logistical necessity to keep their oaths of vassalship. That is not impossible, but it is slow and does not guarantee success. And thanks to you, we currently have need for people who are not Christians. What more do the barbarians want from us? It is about what I want from them. You will see soon enough. So we'll put Kyushu back into civil war. We shall make offers of annexation, and when the Matsura and the Eso refuse, they shall cause civil war. There are no legitimate grounds for annexation. I am the overlord of Kyushu and Chugoku. I have never lost a battle, and the shogun is dead. Peace requires that all bow to the strongest. If they will not bow, they threaten the whole nation. I dare say few will see it that way, but I shall pray daily that they do, Father. Hello there and welcome back to Barbarian Masters. So we're over on the Oki Islands at the moment trying to get Chikaharu and his army off garrison duty, and we've just about managed to do it. They're now stable so we can sail our army back to the mainland where there's some more business to take care of. We need to attack the Yamana because they're not tied to anyone diplomatically and they don't suspect that we're going to attack them, making them the perfect target, and we do need a bit more territory in order to trigger the realm divide we're going to eventually be looking for. So this should be easy enough. Our army's possibly a bit better than theirs, we can't really tell at the moment, but hopefully we can use some tactics to overcome them and take it eventually. Now while that's going on, and while pretty much everything over the next few turns is going on, we are going to be constantly assassinating everyone we can in the capital, really just to train up the geisha at this point. There's no further members of the Ashikaga family left, there's no point just assassinating shogunate officials, but we're just doing it both to strike fear into the hearts of the former leaders of the nation, and to make them better at killing people so we can kill some important targets later. Now this happened all of a sudden. A Honma fleet came and started attacking us in western Kyushu. I think the Honma declared war on us many episodes ago and I've completely forgotten about it, but at this stage we're getting a nice rude awakening when they come to attack one of our trade nodes here. Because we had lots of trade ships, and a trade ship can in theory take down a Bokuboya, I thought I'd try and hold our position here and go for the fight. We get good wind, the wind's right behind us towards the enemies, and we can use our sails to advance on the enemy nice and quickly. That may help out with getting boarding actions going, and that's what we're going to want to do. As we get near, they seem to focus fire all of their flaming arrows onto one trade ship in particular, so they're taking a lot of damage here and they get hit by enough arrows that it does start a fire on the ship. So they're now going to be knocked out of the fight for a while. They'll have to go into repair ship mode to try and stop that fire from spreading and put it out. The rest of the ships will try to board the Kaboyas, throwing their ropes out and mostly getting them latched onto the enemy, so it starts the boarding action, but after that there's a period of maneuver where you have to get close enough for the Marines to jump. And with a trade ship, this just doesn't really happen. You can see the enemy are kind of just drifting away. The trade ships are so unmaneuverable at doing little fine maneuvers close to the enemy that they do often just get stuck and freeze up, and the boarding actions don't really happen. It's been a problem for us before, and in this battle it's much worse because while we wait trying to get the boarding going, the enemy are recharging their fire arrows, and you can see they've set fire to multiple ships, and we've got lots of our ships just surrendering under the enemy's pressure, including our command ship, a Bokaboya at the back. So essentially things fell apart very quickly. This didn't work at all like I thought it would, and the longer the battle goes on, the more ships are just being set on fire one by one. I tried to get the last couple of ships out of there, but they were too slow. The enemy caught up and started boarding us, and now we have such a morale disadvantage that even though they may not necessarily win the melee there, they'll just rout us because things are essentially over. Our men don't want to fight. We've lost our whole trade fleet just like that. I really should have just run away, because though we probably would have taken deep sea attrition, we could have come back later with these ships to use them. Now they're all gone, a close defeat, and we didn't even take out a single enemy ship. Probably damaged some of their crews, but that's not very helpful right now. This means the enemy will be able to take that trade node and use some of the trade ships they captured from me to immediately start trading through it. Their main fleet though actually went away somewhere, so this is going to give us an easy opportunity to take the trade node back in our turn. Fortunately, I did have some ships nearby that Yoshishige had been using to ferry his army around, so we've got a powerful fleet that can now help our attack here. I'll just use these Bokaboyas to get things going. The enemy runs away, and now the trade node is ours, although we don't have any trade ships, so we can't use it for trading, but we can just sit on it so that we have this bit of territory controlled and we'll trade through it later. The question is, where did the rest of the Honma fleet go? We'll have to wait and see on that one. Meanwhile, going to keep building more ships to secure ourselves in the area a bit more. Now back over to the front line, it's time to get things started with the Yamana. I'll just say, I hope you know what you're doing. Do you doubt everything our Lord orders? Even after we've come this far? Not everything. I like the orders he has for me. I just think that even if you win out there, there won't be all that many people who are happy about it. Aside from the barbarians, of course. You don't want to end the wars? I want to end the wars, sure. That's the good part of all this. Everything else, though, there's very good reason to keep my name out of those histories, let's just say. You'll be there whether you like it or not. Might not say anything especially pleasant if you're going to act as an anchor against progress, though. Progress. It is a form of progress, I shall grant you that. From slave to master to slave. Walk around the whole world and you end up back where you started, despite all the effort. Perhaps the journey is the most important part, whatever you're talking about. Perhaps it is time you got going. Big fleet like this in their harbour might tip the enemy off, you know. So be it. Until next time, Admiral. If there is a next time. Good luck, and make sure you keep the shackles dry. Looks like the Yamana aren't just going to let me invade, they come out with their army to meet me on the coast. This battle looks roughly equal, the enemy has a decent army, so do we, but we don't need to fight here, so I'm going to try and escape. It would be better if we can just not fight them and now walk past them and go for their castle instead. They do though have a fleet over in the west that I didn't know about. I probably should have looked for them before actually declaring war on these guys. They're going to cause a bit of trouble, but both of the battles they start, I'm just going to retreat from them because again there's no particular advantage to fighting these guys now. We can team up with a lot more stuff next turn now that I know we've got a target there, and indeed nothing bad comes of it, so we'll go after them later. We also saw for a second there our vassal, the Besho, are moving out, and we'll come back to that later. Now the Honma fleet is back at it again. They come to the southwest of Kyushu to attack another trade node. This time I'm just not going to bother fighting them, although that battle was easier than the last one, so I probably should have. But what actually happened there was they didn't take the trade node, some other random one region faction did. That was really annoying. I was hoping Honma would sit on it and then I could just go after them with tons of big military navies to go and annihilate them and finish this off for good. But now we have to deal with these guys, the Soma, who are from the other end of the country, but they do have lots of ships in this blob to the south of Kyushu, so declaring war on them right now isn't 100% safe. We need to make sure they can't blockade our trade routes ideally. But we'll start setting up for a war with them. I'll get some ships ready to retake the node and defend it in case the Honma fleet comes back. And I'll build some more ships to deal with the Soma's other fleet as well. So we should have enough stuff eventually to sort all that out. And we're also now going to just gang up on that Yamana fleet. I had lots of fleets around the place so we can come at them with all sorts of different things. Not a huge advantage on the balance bar, but I thought surely we have them here. We've got so many medium bunets and they only have bokaboyas. So we just take them down, and that's going to be the end of that. Hopefully the Yamana don't have any other ships, because they can't really build more since we have naval dominance over where their port is. And with any luck, they won't have their port for long anyway, so that should settle the issue. Now I'm setting up here in northern Kyushu for an attack on the Matsura in a very subtle sort of way. We're not really committing to it now. I'm going to keep building up my forces. We've got Yoshishige holding down the Tachibana because of public order issues, but eventually those armies up there may be put to use in dealing with our own vassal. And on that same topic, here you can see with the Besho moving out to our east, I'm going to be really annoying and sneaky and move all of these missionaries into their territory. This will cause their public order to start declining. You can see it's already happening. They're starting to become Christian and they will start to rebel, and because their army is away, we might actually be able to get them to lose their territory. Then we can step in and take it from the rebels, and thus we'll have annexed our vassal without actually being dishonored by declaring war on them. I tried to incite a revolt here. That didn't work, unfortunately. We've got more priests to try it with, but I'm not going to do that for now. The Besho are moving out, by the way, to attack the Yamana, most likely. So this means we need the war with the Yamana to last at least a few more turns, so that we can do that plan down there in the south as well. Now, I initially considered going to fight their army in a straight-up field battle. I've reinforced Kobayakawa's force with a few units from the west, but then I realised we don't really need to do this either, because we're standing next to all these ambushable forests. We can just set up virtually the same thing, only as an ambush, to try and get a slight edge on the enemy. So I go into a hidden position, then I realised that we can actually do this ever so slightly to the left, so that the ambush is in our territory. That gives us a pretty big advantage, because after the fight we'll get replenishment, which gives us a much better ability to counter-attack afterwards, as long as we haven't taken horrendous losses, that is. So that's our setup, and we're going to use that other small army as the bait to try and make Yamana attack it. I went in for another attempt at getting a rebellion going over here, and it did actually work this time, although the rebel army is smaller than the garrison inside the castle and probably has lower quality units, so unlikely to succeed. We may have to wait for a regular public order based rebellion there, but I am going to get something together, get Kurokawa's army all patched up with all these various armies I've got standing around, get a good army together, ready to go and hopefully kill some rebels later. And this ambush, as you can see, does take place. It's really not that much of a better battle than what we saw before, according to the balance bar. One downside to doing an ambush is that your reinforcements don't really take part in the battle because it happens so quickly. So our army is actually a bit weaker than it would have been if we did a field battle, but the enemy will get a morale penalty for fighting in an ambush, so we'll see how that balances out. Their column was the wrong way round to what I expected. Their general was at the north end. I expected him to be at the south end for whatever reason, so I put my light cavalry there to fight him. Instead, he's going to be fighting my katana cavalry. That's not so bad. Katana cavalry and Generals Hatamoto are pretty much the same thing, and we have the numerical advantage, and I think our guys are quite veteran as well, so we may even have a stats advantage. So we'll just let that fight go on. Meanwhile, we're just going to have a wall of samurai charge into the enemy's blob and get this fight going. The enemy do have lots of samurai of their own, and they have lots of Naginata samurai, who are essentially the mutual counter to Katana samurai, in that Katanas have high attack, low defense, and Naginatas is the other way around. So those guys are just going to annihilate each other very quickly in that melee. Meanwhile, on the left, I've got no Daichi samurai killing enemy archers. That's easy enough, and I've got cavalry being microed around to try and get enemy units out of the fight. On our right, I've got all of our ranged units here in a blob. I'm going to try and move them gradually around to the flanks of the enemy to get some good shots onto their blobs if we can. Our fight with their generals is going very well. I think we killed one of the generals, but their commanding officer is still alive at this point. The thing is, we are starting to lose men very rapidly in the frontline engagements, even here with our katana samurai fighting the enemy's archers in melee. Because they're bow samurai, they're pretty decent in melee as well, and we're just being overwhelmed here. These Naginata samurai make a run for our ranged blob. Our guns just about get out of the way, well most of them do anyway, and the Naganatas decide not to bother fighting the rest of us. I do have 2 spear units with that blob to defend it. Kobyakawa's in trouble, the enemy have broken through, so I'm going to have to run away with him. That's going to demoralize our troops, not very nice, but now these exposed units can be hit with skirmishing troops and will just keep running away if they try to engage me and use the big open space on this battlefield. We'll need to do the same thing with these units. At this point in the battle, we're kind of down to just our range stuff and our cavalry. Our melee line in the center that made that initial attack is virtually gone. So now things are turning into a huge micro fest. I need to try and kill everything the enemy has using cavalry and range. That means lots of kiting with the cav and skirmishing with the range stuff to try and whittle the enemy down. It's difficult but not impossible, and we do have the advantage on the balanced bar, so we're going to keep trying and see if we can pull out a victory here, but the losses are already racking up.
You'll get your way, Shigenobu. Not going to be anyone left to ransom after this.
Heavens, who will listen to me? Bishop Montaigne, the Holy Father, whoever hears my call, open your gates. These souls have died honorably in battle, Christian and Buddhist alike.
I am sorry I could not be like Lord Yoshiaki. He could have led you from here to Kyoto without pause. My only achievement was to deliver you an end that will not disappoint your ancestors.
The blood spilt will win us this field. May others capture more land than this, for far less of a price.
Our skirmishing has eventually done a lot of damage to all of these isolated enemy units who just can't catch up with the stuff they're aggroed onto. And now our reinforcements finally arrive, announcing that arrival with a volley of grenades that destroys both sides in one of the last little melees going on. Fortunately, it routed the enemy side rather than mine, so that's actually going to clear things up there. And now the enemy's army losses are so high that everything else is starting to rout as well. So it looks like we are just about going to pull a victory out here. Our firebomb throwers, eager to get some action, managed to chip the edge of that samurai unit as it escapes, but they probably aren't going to need to chase them down here. We've got this battle won. A decisive victory, it claims, although it felt like the losses were very strong on our side, so perhaps not quite that good. From the results we see that we actually lost 3 units of samurai, so that's pretty bad. They're going to be very hard to restore into our army. And some other units not looking in the best of condition either. Really, Kobyakawa's force now lacks a melee component. We don't have a solid front line to use, just tons of skirmishers and cav. Even the cav's not in the best of shape. The enemy lost everything but 1 man in the rout phase there, and that guy was the daimyo of the faction, so we'll have to go and chase him down later on if we can put our army back together a little bit. First, the Honma attack us once again. Now they're moving to northern Kyushu, attacking this random trade ship I had floating about. We'll just run away from that engagement since we don't want to fight that, and now that leaves the Honma in a somewhat vulnerable position because we do have lots of ships up at that end of the island, so now we can chase them down. This allows us to get this little fight going. Nice and favourable for us. The enemy ships are damaged in many cases from the previous fight we did with them, and I've got some powerful ships like these Yumi Siege Tower Bunes, who are basically medium bunes that specialise at ranged attacks and are less vulnerable to ranged attacks as well. But anyway, we send those guys to the bottom. Now there's just a few Honma stolen trade ships to worry about. Not too bad. I'm sure we'll be able to get our trade nodes back soon as well once we attack the Soma with our overwhelming force. Here we can see our plan to get a rebellion going against the Besho hasn't worked by the looks of things. The rebels have been defeated in battle. Public order is still negative, so we can keep our missionary actions going to try and get some more regular rebellions happening. They might be a little bit bigger and have more success, but this does mean we need to make sure the war with the Yamana doesn't end anytime soon, so that the Besho forces will keep moving over there to support us as part of the vassalship agreement. So we need to make sure we don't conquer Yamana right away, but we can still move out with Kobyakawa, reinforcing him with a few Yari Ashigaru I've recruited so that his army is a tiny bit more viable and has something of a front line to use. Then we'll just move out and attack that daimyo, finish him off, and then perhaps put their castle under siege and wait until we're allowed to have this war be over.
Will you let me end things on my own terms?
Yes, Lord, you will be free to do so.
So you can resist the will of the invaders on occasion. Perhaps there is hope left for my people.
Your people will be safe now, Lord. Rest assured.
Safe? You do not understand the meaning of the word. Who is safe from the Otomo? No one! Now everyone knows it. Barbarians in Japanese robes, the picture of disgrace.
You've said your piece. Let's head to the shrine upstream. We passed a suitable spot on the way.
Yes, convenient to burn my body in the same blaze that levels the homes of so many sacred spirits. A cruelty machine that can't be stopped. I shall be glad to leave this nightmare.
The Yamana clan, in light of their recent defeats, offer a peace treaty, and they're also willing to be an Otomo vassal. Earlier in the campaign we might have accepted such a deal, but right now taking territory and occupying it is more important because that's going to progress us towards Realm Divide. We need to edge a tiny bit closer to it by taking the Yamana territory, so that just means Kobyakawa will continue on. We're going to lay siege to their castle, and now you can see the balance bar's not completely in our favour. They do have a few units inside, so we're going to just leave them under siege, not only since we can now reinforce to make that battle a bit easier, but because leaving them under siege will, as we mentioned earlier, force the Besho to keep moving their army in this direction so we can keep doing our little rebel plan. We can also now spy out what's to the east of the Yamana. There are various castles nearby that might be nice to take before Realm Divide if possible, because that'll be a nice defensible area. Meanwhile, down in the capital, the spree of murders is going to continue, and we seem to be very lucky. It's really just everyone I click on dies. These assassinations are just not failing, and our geisha certainly aren't being caught for it, so that's all very good. Now it's time to start a war with the Soma. We do need to get on and take that trade node back, because every turn they have it is a turn we're not making money off it, so it gets worse and worse. So there's the war started. The first thing we need to pay attention to is the navy they have in this blob here. So after a bit of wrangling, I managed to get a few ships to engage them. They just ran out of the blob after the game tried to decide what to do with them. A small annoyance arose from this actually, because I thought they sailed off somewhere to the west out of my line of sight. They're actually visible. You can see they're just in the bay outside Satsuma, but when I was playing I didn't spot them there. I didn't notice the fleet was actually still somewhere where it might threaten me, and where I can actually just go and trap it right now to stop it doing anything. But since I didn't do that, they are going to come back to haunt me later. At least, of course, we can very easily take the trade node back, so there we go. Now we'll get that money flowing back into our coffers, and they're not going to have the strength to take it back off us. Now I tried to start another rebellion in the Besho territory to get this going once again. The chance of success was low, but I decided to go for it anyway, and I was punished. Our missionary was executed, a relatively high level missionary as well, so that's not very good at all. I could still try it with those other ones, but I thought let's not risk it after that went wrong. But at least we are going to have some good news as we arrive into the next turn. The chaos in Kyoto has left me with a dilemma. I am to establish cordial relations between Her Majesty Katerina and the High King of the Japanese Isles. With the line of succession shattered, simply deciding who it is I should be speaking to is a delicate matter indeed. It seems you have come to the correct conclusion in the end. Well, that is a matter for debate. However, there are terms I have been given for you that, if accepted, will make life easier for you and I both. Speak. The Kingdom of Portugal is willing to recognize your Kingdom of Otomo as the legitimate rulers of these islands, and provide you with military aid to ensure that your fellow lords understand the significance of this. In exchange, you want all the prisoners of war? No, good king.
Well, yes, that also, but furthermore, you must pledge that should our kingdom have military interests of our own in the region, in China, say, that your troops will in turn be given to aid in our own endeavours.
I agree.
Ah, well, that is good, good. I will draft the official documents. I will inform the Queen that you are most eager to work together with us.
Inform her that I need no more missionaries, but guns, ships, and trained fighting men.
Of course, of course. Our union between the two sides of the earth will be unbreakable.
Please leave us now, Nanban.
Oh, of course. Good day and good health, my king.
As we can see, the Besho have been overthrown by their own people, and my army was of course ready to step in and immediately stamp down that rebellion and claim the territory for ourselves. The Besho army will now have disappeared because their faction has been destroyed, so no problems there, and our border has just moved that tiny bit further east. We'll start preparing this territory, making it nice and Christian and giving it the buildings that we need, and then continue to wait to see what Realm Divide might bring. We also now have the Mastery of the Waves technology, so we can build the Nanban Dry Dock, which will allow us to field European units. The only problem is that it takes a long time to build, and it's really expensive, and that second problem is the main one, because enemy ships blockading our trade routes mean I actually don't have the money to even get it going right now, so we just need to clear everything up. Our first blockade at Nagasaki went down easy, but now we've got another one here that I thought we probably should fight ourselves, because that balance bar is not very good. I thought I had a much bigger advantage than it was telling me, and what we can do is make it a night battle. That's another thing that Mastery of the Waves unlocks, so that should give us a tiny bit of an edge in that the enemy's morale will be lower than usual. So they're just sitting up there in a line. They've just got 7 Bokaboyas, we've got 4 medium bune and 2 Dondabus Sekibune, and those shotgun ships proved to be a bit faster than the other ones, so they started turning around as they overshot their mark while they were forming up, and that proved to be a big mistake for them, because now they're actually going to fall behind the medium bunes, who are just going to carry on in a straight line. So essentially the start of the battle was completely messed up. I needed my shotgun ships to go in there first, since they need to be closest to the enemy to actually participate in the fight. But anyway, our medium bunes will do well enough on their own for a little bit. We have a ranged and melee advantage against the enemy ships, so where I can I'll just board the enemy. We have 4 to 5 times the number of marines on our boat, so we can easily overcome the enemy with a boarding action and force a surrender, which will capture the ship for us, which is always handy. Then once we do get our Dondabus ships into range, we'll start blasting away at enemy archers on these decks here, doing lots and lots of damage. Just takes a few seconds to kill half an enemy crew, and that's going to inflict a big morale shock as well. We can also use our medium bune's war cry throughout the fight to reduce enemy morale. Here, this Bokaboy is being hit by arrows from the front and Dondabus shots from behind. They really have very little chance. Most of the crew is killed very, very quickly indeed, and that's going to lead to them surrendering. Same thing for most of the rest of their fleet. The boarding and the perishing fire causes them to give up. Although we did have to chase down 1 extra Bokaboya that sailed away from the group, which always seems to happen in naval battles for me, for some reason anyway. Eventually we caught up with these guys, a few arrows and some more Dondabus action causes them to surrender, and we have now broken that naval blockade. The money will start flowing once again. And that was just a nice opportunity to see a night naval battle. It's all very pretty out here, some lovely starry skies and the nice glow of the lamps on our ships to enjoy. Anyway, with that now sorted out, we can start saving up for that western support and continuing our other preparations with some more military action. With Yoshiaki away from the front lines, the Lords of Japan watched to see what would happen when his subordinates took command. They were happy to see that while the advance did not halt, it at least slowed tremendously. Even if it had halted, that would not have prevented the Otomo from maintaining their trade monopolies, scoring many victories at sea to quickly seal up any weaknesses in their blanket of naval supremacy. To the outside world, it appeared that dealing with Japan was synonymous with dealing with the Otomo. The amount of influence this gave Yoshiaki in national affairs was almost more valuable than the huge profits it was driving. So that is all for now. Thank you very much for watching, and a very special thanks as always to the OfficiallyDevin patrons for making all of this possible. We'll be enacting a devious scheme in Kyushu to further shore up our defences and reduce the number of knives that might be waiting behind our backs in the next episode of Barbarian Masters.